Hey guys, welcome. In today's video, we are going to be talking about homemade gluten-free pasta and a really simple and delicious gluten-free vodka sauce. Now, to start real quick, I want to talk about this flour. To make homemade gluten-free pasta, this flour is really crucial. I've tried a bunch of different flours and it's never come out until I tried this one. So I highly recommend get on Amazon, order this flour, and you will have delicious homemade gluten-free pasta, minimal ingredients, and really easy. So let's get started. We're gonna start with just 1 cup of flour. And again, it doesn't need to be measured out perfectly. So we're gonna, like this, a nice little scoop, set that aside. And then all else we're gonna add is 3 whole eggs and a little bit of salt. So you can knead this by hand if you don't have a stand mixer, but I find that the mixer, like a KitchenAid or whatnot, just makes the process so much easier and simple and less messy. But again, if you wanted to make a well on your counter and mix it by hand, you totally can do that. So next, I'm just going to grab my salt and some olive oil. So I'm going to sprinkle in about a teaspoon of salt. And to show you just like a little bit in the palm of your hand. And then we're also going to drizzle in some olive oil. Just a couple turns. Super simple. All right, and next we're going to attach to our KitchenAid and let it do all the work. Now with gluten-free pasta, you don't need to knead this for a really long time because we're not essentially activating any gluten. We just want everything combined. All right, we're gonna turn this on just to like 1 or 2, just until everything is well combined. Then about halfway through, we are going to scrape the bowl just to make sure everything is really well incorporated. So with this pasta dough, you'll notice a lot of recipes have like so many ingredients in the recipe card itself. And I've tried tons of other recipes. It just never really worked out with me. And I really wanted something really simple and straightforward that didn't have like 10 ingredients on the list. And something like a flour blend that kind of had everything already mixed in. So I did a lot of research on this cup for cup flour, and it's actually a really good gluten-free flour. They've done like different experiments with it, and one of them was like people couldn't even tell that a cake was gluten-free because of this flour. So I was very eager to try it. And one of the first recipes we tested was this pasta recipe, and it came out phenomenal. It wasn't gritty. It had a really good texture, and all I needed was like 3 ingredients. So I was super stoked about that. So there, I just scraped the bowl. I'm gonna continue to mix it just a little bit longer until the dough is really well incorporated. And then after that, all we're gonna do is cover the bowl and let it rest for about 30 minutes. Again, since it is gluten-free flour, we don't need to let it rest for a very long time. We're just gonna do this until we are done prepping our sauce. So here we are. Oops, wrong way. Our dough is mixed. All right, so next we are going to, on a well-floured surface with our cup for cup flour, we're gonna form our dough into a ball before we let it rest. We're just gonna scoop it all out directly onto the flour as best as you can. It is a little thick. A little trick that we like to do is to actually throw some flour into the bowl, and that will help you scrape it all out pretty easy. So I'm kind of just using my fingers as a scraping tool, or if you have a bowl scraper, even better. And it's just coming out so much easier. And there we go. All right, so next, we're just going to start folding the dough over onto itself until we get that nice little ball shape. So here I am. As I fold over, I grab it and rotate it and then continue to fold it over onto itself. We're just going to do this a couple times. Again, there's no gluten that we need to activate here. We just want the nice rounded shape. The dough still will be a little sticky. That's okay. But you can see this dough is just holding together really well. I'm going to do this a couple more times, rotating every turn. And if it's too sticky, you could always add just a little bit more flour, or even just rub your fingers in the flour as well. That will help. Okay. All right, and then for the final process, I just like to scoop my hands underneath as I rotate. And then to make sure our dough is nice and hydrated, we are going to cover it with some saran wrap. All right, so here we are. We have our formed dough. And then we're going to wrap it in saran wrap because we want to keep all the moisture in our dough. So one little trick I like to do to make sure the dough doesn't stick is to just simply rub a little bit of oil down, or if you have nonstick spray, you could do that as well. This is just going to help the dough not to stick and get a nice seal on the dough as well. So there we are. We're just going to set this aside as we prepare our sauce. All right, so now we are going to start on our vodka sauce. This is just a really simple recipe. You could always feel free to add things to it based on what you have or don't have in your kitchen, or just your taste preferences. So in a skillet over medium heat, there we go. We are going to heat our skillet. And then as we're heating, I have prepped 5 cloves of garlic that I finely minced. You could do more or less depending on your preference. I really like garlic, so I always tend to do a little more than traditional recipes call for. And then I also have just about a quarter of a yellow onion diced. You could substitute this for shallots if you want. That's a great way to add some extra flavor to your dish. And then something I like to do if I have it on hand is to add fresh herbs like thyme or rosemary, or even chopped basil at the end to finish. It's just a really great way to add more depth of flavor to your dish. But again, if you don't have it, it's still going to come out delicious. So first thing we're going to do is, once our pan is hot, we're going to add in about 2 tablespoons of butter. So here I have some salted butter. Unsalted will work just as well. We're going to add that to our pan, and then just a little bit of olive oil. I would say maybe a tablespoon. And we're just going to let this butter melt. And then we're going to I'm going to add in the diced onions. I always add the garlic just a little bit later because they do tend to burn quicker than quicker than the onion does. So we're just going to saute these until they're translucent and fragrant. That's when you know the onion is done, when you get that nice aroma. So just for a few minutes. And then if you don't have butter on hand, you can always use olive oil. Just maybe like a tablespoon or 2 of just olive oil, or whatever cooking oil you prefer. I like to stick with olive oil just because of the flavors in the olive oil. Personally, they just taste so much better to me. But the butter is going to add a depth of flavor to the dish as well. So here we are. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and add in the garlic. Let this saute just for about a minute. And then next, we're going to add in our tomato paste. One of my favorite brands to use is this brand right here, the Contadina. It's just something we always use growing up in our household, and the flavors are just so much better than some of the store brands out there, but use whatever you have. So one thing I like to do is to toast the tomato paste, and this is just to caramelize it, and it's going to add another depth of flavor to the dish. So I'm going to add, I have 1 can in this bowl right here. I'm going to add about half the can. We're going to let this caramelize for a couple of minutes. So just mixing well, stirring continuously. We don't want our onion or garlic to burn. And then at this stage, I also like to add a little bit of salt and pepper just to season along the way, because it's going to add to that depth of flavor for the final dish as well. So here I'm going to do maybe like 1/4 to half a teaspoon of salt, and the same with pepper. And then if you wanted to add something like say you don't have fresh herbs, you could always add some Italian seasoning if you wanted some extra herbs in there, some extra flavor. So I'm going to add just a little bit because I don't have any fresh herbs on hand today. And this is the beauty of cooking. You get to switch things out and customize it to your desires, whatever you like or prefer. And then also just you get to just use ingredients that are left over in your fridge. You don't have to stick to a recipe, and you can customize it to your preference. All right, so at this point, we're going to add our vodka, key ingredient in vodka sauce. So here I have 1/3 cup. We're just going to add this in, and we're going to deglaze. And we want the alcohol to cook off. So we're going to let this cook for a couple of minutes until the sauce has reduced. And by that, I mean you'll notice that the sauce has evaporated. A lot of the moisture in the sauce has evaporated out of the pan, and the sauce will become thicker. So we're going to let this reduce for a couple of minutes just so that alcohol flavor burns off. And then one thing with the vodka sauce, when you're selecting your vodka, if you are gluten-free, make sure you are researching to make sure you're getting a gluten-free brand. I'm using the Smirnoff, just regular vodka, because it is gluten-free. All right, and you can see it here starting to thicken. And the smell here is so good, you guys. I wish you could smell it. That just means you have to try this recipe and make it yourself. All right, so next I'm gonna add about half a can of my tomato sauce. Yep, there we go. And you can add more or less depending on how thick you want your sauce. And then I'm also gonna add, here I have 1 cup of cream. If you have heavy cream, that is preferred. I just have half and half on hand, so that's what I'm using today. But generally, you want the thicker cream. And this is just going to make it so thick and luscious. And you can see it's now starting to turn that beautiful orange color that you traditionally see in a vodka sauce. And then last but not least, we will add some Parmesan cheese. I always opt for this kind of cheese where you grate it yourself because the flavor is just so much better. But if you don't have that, you can use whatever you have. Here we are. The magic is starting to happen. I'm going to turn this down just a little bit. And then when you're cooking, always taste as you go because you could always add flavor, you could add seasonings, you could add salt, but you can't take it out. It's really hard to. One trick, if it is too salty, cut up a potato and stick like a nice chunk of potato in your sauce, and that will help soak up all of the salt in your sauce. But here we are. We got that beautiful, rich orange vodka sauce. I'm just going to give it a taste here, see what it needs. That's good, you guys. Delicious. The only thing we need here is some cheese. And this is something that's great. You can serve it with like whatever protein you want. So if you wanted to do some grilled chicken or some shrimp even, that would be really yummy in this sauce. But it's super quick and super simple. Like we just had minimal ingredients in this. And here you have a delicious homemade sauce that tastes amazing. Your family and your guests will love it and be so impressed. So you got to try it out. And then cheese, I don't have an amount to give you. Just do whatever your heart desires. More is always better. When it comes to Parmesan, for sure, more is always better. So that's it for our sauce, guys. And if you wanted it a little thinner, you can add a little bit of pasta water after you make your pasta, or just add a little more cream. That will help thin it out as well. All right, so there is our sauce. Luscious, beautiful vodka sauce. You could also add some chili flakes here if you wanted a little bit of spice. The options are endless. So I'm just going to turn this off and set this aside, and then we're going to start on making our pasta. All right, so before we start forming our pasta, I'm going to start with boiling some water. One thing that's really important with making pasta is you want to generously salt your water. A lot of people just put like maybe that much salt. You need way more. Like it should taste almost like ocean water, very salty. And this is going to impart a lot of flavor in your pasta as it cooks and not taste bland. And then salt also is going to help speed up the boiling process as well. There we go. I'm going to cover the lid and let that come to a boil. We're going to flour our surface very well. Spread that out just a little bit. Grab our dough. And I'm also going to sprinkle some flour on top. The key to your pasta dough not breaking is generously flour. Like you're probably going to have to flour it a few times throughout rolling out the process because you don't want it to stick. Just gently rolling this out, and then we're going to rotate. Make sure your surface stays nice and floured. And just make sure you continue to flour as you go. That way nothing sticks or breaks. So I'm just going to kind of shape this so when it comes to cutting the dough, it's a lot easier. So again, I'm going to flour, flip, flour, and just roll this as thin as I can get it. And then for the sake of today's video, I'm going to be cutting my pasta by hand, just for you guys that don't have a pasta machine, or maybe you're having some troubles with it, just to show you. And you want to really just roll this as thin as you can, adding flour as needed, making sure your dough is saturated. All right, and since this is gluten-free, the purpose of adding the flour is to make sure it just binds well and doesn't break. It is a way more delicate dough than your regular gluten-full pasta dough. So it looks like we're almost there. And rolling it thin is also going to ensure even cooking and quicker cooking as well. And since this is fresh pasta dough, you're only going to cook it for a couple of minutes, not like your traditional 9 to 11 minutes. All right. I think we are just about there. I'm just pulling the edges because it is stretching and it's starting to fold over on itself. So there we are. You can see it's nice and thin, maybe just a tad bit thinner. Working toward the edges to really stretch it out. And this does make quite a bit of pasta as well. So this is perfect for like a family. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is cut the dough in half. So I have my bench scraper here. A knife will work just as well too if you don't have one. And then working one half at a time, we're going to fold this over. I'm just gonna flip it and flour this side just a little more to make sure it doesn't stick. All right, so now it is nice and floured. So what we're gonna do is grab one end, fold it halfway, grab the other end, fold it halfway, and repeat the process until it meets in the middle. And then we're simply gonna cut to whatever size that you want. Again, I'm going for like a fettuccine size, so I'm gonna do mine a little thicker. Just like that. And again, the importance of flouring your dough really well before you fold it over is so that it doesn't stick during this process and you can unravel the pasta very neatly. So just continue to do this with all of your pasta sheet. This is a little more rustic, which is totally fine. Another thing that I really enjoy about this flour is it has a higher starch content. So when you're working with it, it almost feels like you're working with like a cornstarch or arrowroot starch. And I think that really helps to make light, airy batters with whatever you're cooking or baking. And the end result is less dense than a lot of your gluten-free flours out there. All right, so next I just have a straw here. Use what you got. We're gonna try and gently get all of the pasta onto, we'll just do about half for right now. Shake it out. Look at that, guys. Beautiful pasta, homemade pasta, delicious. So I'm going to grab this and just kind of twist it over onto itself and continue with the rest. Shake it out, grab it and fold it. There we go. There we are. Next, we're going to move over to our pot of boiling water and cook our pasta. All right, our water is boiling. Never put pasta in the water if it's not boiling. It's just going to slow down the process. So here we are. Just toss it all in there. All right, I'm going to cover this just to let it come up to a boil. All right, I'm just going to break it up a little bit, make sure nothing is sticking together. But again, if it is well floured, nothing should stick. These are a little thicker, so I'm going to let them cook for, I would say, about like 5 minutes. And then we'll just check along the way to make sure they are cooked through. All right, so now I'm just reheating my sauce. It has settled and thickened a little bit. So to thin it out, I'm just going to add some pasta water while our pasta is cooking. And just add as much to the consistency that you desire. Give this a little stir. Let this get nice and warm. All right, so here we are. It's thinned out a little bit. If you want your sauce a little thinner, you can add some more sauce or a little more cream. Sorry, add some more pasta water or a little more cream. And then to plate this, I'm just going to add my pasta to a bowl once it's done cooking and throw some of the sauce on top. Get some of that delicious vodka sauce. Just give it a nice little turn.
Thanks, buddy.
Crazy kids. Get all that excess sauce in here. And as always, with any pasta dish, gotta top it with some fresh Parmesan. The more the better. All right. Then I have some fresh basil just picked. Just going to sprinkle some of this on top. And for quality control, I'm gonna give it a taste. Delicious. You guys definitely got to try this out. And there you have it. Homemade pasta and vodka sauce from scratch. Super simple, delicious. Try this recipe out. And thanks for watching, guys.